We got enough people now. Right. So I will be talking about a very important topic now, which is the fear of judgment. But before I do that, there are people who are attending this session for the first time, my session for the first time. So I will introduce myself to you. Okay. My focus is decision making, but particularly I am focused on how fear impact decision making. Okay, how fear impact our lives. This is what I'm focused on now in my research. So what I try to do is I try to improve professional decision making in particular. Okay, but the principles can be applied to any area of the life, but my focus is more on the professionals. Okay, so I help and guide professionals make better decisions, particularly under uncertainty and where there is fear involved. Okay, this is what I do as a business, as a professional. I am not a psychotherapist, so I don't deal with mental health problems. I don't diagnose mental health problems, and I don't treat mental health problems. So please, when you ask me questions, do not ask me questions in the context of mental health problems. Okay, I'm only focused on decision making. I want to improve the quality of your decisions and your judgments. That's all. Okay, now before I continue with my talk, those who just logged in, I am recording this session for YouTube. If you want to delete a particular part where you've asked a question or you have expressed your opinions, I will delete that. And most importantly, if you don't want to be seen, turn your videos off. Okay, right. Fear of judgment. Before I explain the consequences of the fear of judgment as to what happens when we go through this phenomenon, it's important that we understand why we have the fear of judgment in the first place. Because this is very, very important, right? Where it is coming from. And it's such a universal thing. It's not like someone has it and someone else does not have it. It's just not like that, right? It's a very universal thing. Obviously, the intensity is different. So someone might be suffering through it and they might be in a lot of pain because of it, while other people might have it, but they'll be able to control it. But still, there'll be this nagging feeling of, oh my God, should I say it or should I not say it? Should I do it or should I not do it, right? So what's going on? Right. Fear is one of the first drives or instincts of that we evolved as as species. Okay, as pretty much most of the species. Okay, this instinct of backing off from something which is dangerous is very, very primal. Okay, so understand you have a brain which is fixated on two things: survival and passing on the genes. Okay, this is what your brain evolved for, and this is what your brain is focused on. It wants to make sure that you survive and you pass on the gene. This is it. Okay, so in order to do that, your brain evolved functions, different functions, in order to fulfill these two objectives. Okay, and fear was one of the most important functions, or possibly one of the earliest functions that evolved. Now, fear as an emotion and fear as a reflex, they are two different things. Okay, so insects, right, or a lot of other creatures, when you make a sound close to them or you step right close to them, they will instinctively back off or run away. They don't show emotions, okay, but they have this instinctive back off or run away from the threat instinct. That was the fear that we evolved initially. And then later on, through the evolutionary process, some of the organisms, particularly mammals, they started to evolve different systems. Fear as an emotion evolved from that instinct. And the emotions evolved because evolution felt that there has to be more to than just simple reflexes. Okay, so emotions were added so that we can make better decisions. But that's the topic for another day. For now, what we need to understand is that fear is normal, fear is natural, fear is here to protect us. Okay, I would not be talking to you today if my ancestors were not afraid, mine and yours. Answer. We would not be talking today. We will not be talking today to each other if our ancestors were not afraid, if they didn't took cover, if they didn't hid under the rock, or if if they ventured out in the night without a care. No, that's not how things work. Okay, they were scared of the darkness, and that's being scared of the darkness resulted in their evolution or their survival. Okay, so fear is natural. Now, as anything else, things can go wrong. Okay, we can use the same fear for the positive, or we can use the same fear for the negative. Okay, our job is to optimize fear, not get rid of it. There's no way you're going to get rid of it. We need to optimize fear for better performance and a happy life. And this is what we're going to be doing. Right. So this is the evolutionary background of fear. Now that your brain is fixated on survival, it is evolving more and more mechanisms. Okay? During evolution, it is evolving more and more mechanisms to make sure that the process is more efficient, because efficiency is the key. Because it's difficult to survive. Okay? The environment is harsh. The environment is very, very harsh. Okay? And it's very, very difficult to survive. And the brain is finding it very, very difficult. So it needs different methods or efficient methods to make it a little bit easier, to make it a little bit smoother. So what happens is that your brain and my brain evolved an amazing, amazing, amazing function: bonding with others. Okay, so now when we bond with others, when we form groups, we are more protected in a group. Okay, through the group, we can procure more food and resources. So the group become this focal, this center of survival for the brain, because the group makes the job so much easier. Okay, so what happens if you are thrown out of the group? That's not good for survival, right? So if imagine in savannah, a group of 10 people are walking, okay, and the 9 decide that this one should be left behind for whatever reason, because they don't like that individual, or that individual is weak, or that individual smells bad, whatever the reason is. They say, well, look, don't follow us, stay here, we're moving, but you're not following us anymore. This is the most painful state for the brain, when we are thrown out of the group or threatened to be thrown out of the group. This is the most painful, one of the most painful states for the brain. Okay, why? Because this individual now would be standing right in the middle of one of the most dangerous environments on the planet, without protection, without the tribe. The brain went mental, because survival and passing on the gene is threatened now. Okay, this is behind your fear of judgment. You don't want to be thrown out of the group. If you perceive any threat to that, fear is activated. Strong fear is activated because that the job of the fear is to make sure that you survive. So if there is a threat in the environment, or if there is a perception of threat in the environment, fear is going to get activated because it's trying to protect you. Whoa, what's going on? Let's get ready. There's a danger in the environment. So when you perceive that you will be thrown out of the group, it might not be. It might not be a real situation. Nobody's telling you yet, go away. That just the perception of it is enough for fear to be activated. Okay, so you're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. It's your evolutionary biology within you. Your brain lives in savannah. It doesn't live in New York and London. It still lives in the jungle and the forests. So now, every time there is the threat, that you'll be judged, particularly you'll be judged negatively, okay, fear will be activated. So this is the evolutionary basis of this fear of judgment. You just need to keep in mind that you're not crazy, okay? And this is critical, because what happens is normally when we stress over stress, this multiplies the effect of stress. Okay, once we understand that, okay, this is this, and this is my biological process, and I need to do this to bring it down, bring it a notch down. Don't try to get rid of it. When you try to get rid of things, particularly strong emotional responses, that's where you get into more difficulties or troubles, because you can't. There's no way you can, right? Your aim should be minimizing the impact of a strong emotional response rather than getting rid of it. Okay. If you attend my other talks, I talk about the purpose of emotions, why they're there, the purpose of negative emotions, why we have negative emotions. So do attend my other talks, and I clarify that why we have negative emotions, and then you will understand where I'm coming from. That there is, you shouldn't try to get rid of it, minimizing the impact of it. Okay, channeling it, optimizing our emotions. That's something we are aiming for. So this is the evolutionary background of why we have this fear of judgment. Now, I want to talk about, excuse me, the machinery of it, the neurobiology of it. Okay, I want you to understand that there are components in your brain which are involved in this function. Okay, so what happens is, once you have this understanding that I have these different parts in my brain which are doing this, then it's easy to manage your emotions, because now you have agency. It's more of a mechanical process, rather than something that you don't understand, or something that is out of your body experience, or something that is more sort of non-mechanical, some sort of a mystical experience. You don't want to go there. What you need to understand is that your emotions are nothing more than chemical and electrical actions and reactions in your brain. Nothing more than that. Okay, this is it. What you need to do is you need to understand your neurobiology, so you can channel, or you can try to control, or try to minimize the impact of a negative and even positive emotions. Sometimes we make wrong decisions under the influence of positive emotions as well, right? So a positive emotion can also be a dangerous thing in certain circumstances. We make bad decisions when we are going out with someone, right? In romantic situations, there are a lot of positive emotions around. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's euphoric. But we make bad decisions and bad judgments, right? And so the key is to understand our emotions, where they are coming from, and then channeling them, okay, minimizing their impact and channeling them in the right direction so we make better decisions. That's the idea. Now I want to move on to the neurobiological side of things, but before I do that, if you have any question or if you are happy, thumbs up. Okay, thumbs up if you are happy, or if you have any quick question, please ask me now. So the way I do it is I the way I do it is I will deliver my talk first, and in the next half, the next 30 minutes or 40 minutes, then we can engage in questions and answers. And also, you will have the opportunity to express your ideas and your knowledge as well in that second half of the talk. Okay, I don't want it to be focused on me. So I will share my knowledge first, and then in the second half, you will have the opportunity to express your opinions. If you have any questions or if you have knowledge, please come forward, because the idea is that we all should benefit from each other, and we should leave this talk more optimized and more in control of our fears. That's the main aim. Okay, so what are the areas of the brain that are engaged in this phenomenon? Okay, so the most prominent and important one is a component in your brain which is behind your eyes, somewhere in the middle, and it's a pair. It's called the amygdala. Okay, it's the size of an almond, shaped like an almond. So that's why it's termed as the amygdala, because this is a word. It's a Greek word for almond, or maybe Latin. I think it's a Greek word, a word for almond. So amygdala is responsible for your survival related emotions, both positive and negative. But it is more focused, amygdala is more focused on the negative survival emotions, particularly fear lives in amygdala. Okay, fear. So amygdala is your ministry of defense, right? And it is on a 24/7. It is constantly looking for threats in the environment. It is trying to protect you. Okay, it's, in a way, it's a blessing to have an amygdala. Okay, because amygdala is trying to prevent us from doing things that we shouldn't be doing. Right? You don't go hug a bear because your amygdala is trying to protect you. Okay, you don't venture out in certain parts of a town because you feel it. You know, it gives you a vibe, and you back off thanks to your amygdala. So your amygdala is trying to protect you, but things can go wrong. And when things do go wrong, then your amygdala is overactivated. And I'll explain the whole process of how amygdala overactivation can result in bad decisions in a minute. Once, you know, I'm going to go through step by step, right? But first I need to describe it. So it's a component which is responsible for your survival, and fear lives in amygdala. And we are constantly scanning, our brain is constantly scanning threats in the environment. So certain faces, certain expressions, okay, anger, contempt, the amygdala is very sensitive to that because they convey a threat to us. Okay, certain words that people say, okay, our amygdala will be very, very sensitive to those, because this is how people, you know, through body language or through words will sort of, you know, convey their intentions to you, good and bad intentions. So amygdala is very, very involved in it. So when it comes to fear of judgment, your amygdala will be very, very active. It is because it is working in concert with other parts of your brain. And one of them is the medial prefrontal cortex. So you have a prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead. So, you know, just to give you a simplistic definition of things, I don't want to go into the complexity of the whole neuroscience. Just to keep things simple. So you have a brain at the bottom end, which is called the lizard brain. It's a simple brain which did the simple survival functions, like I told you, like the insect running away from threat, or the insect running after an opportunity. So those basic functions are sort of controlled by the bottom section of the brain, like digestion and sleeping and the blinking of the eye, sexuality, the heartbeat. Anything that is automatic and it's basic is controlled by the bottom section of the brain. But evolution, for whatever reason, thought that, well, that's good for the insects, but I don't like it for these creatures. So I want something more for these creatures. So they evolved the next section of the brain, which is called the mammalian brain. And mammalian brain is now the center of your emotions. Okay, so now those reflexes are helped by emotions in decision making. Okay, so the reflex is, and then I saw a shadow and it looks like a lion, so I run. Okay, well, it might not be optimal, because what if it's not a lion? You pretty much there could have been an opportunity. You didn't take advantage of the opportunity. So more information is required for better decision making. So evolution, again, thought that, well, certain creatures need to have more capability in decision making. So the top section of the brain, the cortical section of the brain, evolved. Okay. Now the cortical section of the brain, particularly the prefrontal cortex, just behind your forehead, the job of this section, one of the jobs of this section, is to take information from the environment, okay, rational, logical information from the environment, and convey that information to the emotional center of the brain. Okay, so the emotional center of the brain and the prefrontal cortex, they talk to each other, they communicate each other, and there is this bi-directional communication between them. And through that communication, they are sort of engaged in a dialogue. I saw a shadow. Oh my God, this is a lion. Nah, I don't think so. I don't think this is a lion. It looks like a lion, but I think it's more of an antelope. So it might be food. It might be food. Ah, so now the creature is not running away. The creature is saying, yeah, might be an opportunity. See the difference between reflexes and the optimal decision making. Now we have comparatively better decision making. Now we're not just running away, we're taking advantage of the opportunity. It could be an antelope. So that's how decision making is made by the brain through the interaction of these different components. So the medial prefrontal cortex, the medial part of the prefrontal cortex, is where we engage in this phenomenon called the theory of mind. Okay, the theory of mind is a concept where we are trying to decipher what someone else is up to, or something else is up to. Okay, so we go through this thought process in our brain, okay, where we are trying to judge if the other person is a friend or a foe, because that's critical information for survival. Okay, because out there we are although we belong to a small tribe, but the other tribe is might their tribe might or might not be friends. Okay, they might want to take over our territory. They might want to take over the females in the group. They might want to steal the kids, or they might want to steal the food that we have. We don't know what their intentions are, right? So we engage in this phenomenon where we try to figure out what the other person is thinking about us. So now, if you have an overactive amygdala and you have this medial prefrontal cortex, okay, and if the amygdala is stronger, okay, it can impact the thinking pattern of that medial prefrontal cortex. Now, you might be engaged in this theory of mind where you might be thinking, no, they are enemies. No, they are after me. No, they are trying to kill me. This person said this to me. That means this was bad. Okay. But if the medial prefrontal cortex, is more powerful than the amygdala, then we can sort of tone down the impact of fear. And this is something I'll be talking about later, is how we're going to do it, right? So understand how these brain part works, and you have the agency, you have control over it. Okay. So one part of the brain is trying to make sense of the world around you. The other part of the brain is purely acting on emotions. Okay. But they talk to each other. Now, the key is to make the rational side, or the prefrontal cortex, a little bit stronger to overcome our fear of judgment. Okay, I'll explain, or I'll go through the different techniques that we deploy to do that. Wim Banashi, do you have any question?
I have a question. You're saying that amygdala will use, our need to protect ourselves is the basic instinct and the quickest thing, right? How do you account for past experiences affecting your present decision?
Yeah, I will come to that. Okay, I was going to come to that step by step.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Okay, that's fine. Right. So that is your medial prefrontal cortex. One component, and then you have the amygdala component number two. Then you have other components as well. So you have the dorsal cingulate cortex. Okay, you don't need to remember these names. I'm just throwing these names so that you understand that there are components in the brain and there are names for it. But for your decision making, you don't need to really, unless you want to pass an exam, but you just need to know that there are things in your brain which does certain things, right? So then there is dorsal anterior cortex and anterior insula. They're also parts of the brain. These parts of the brain are involved in pain, physical pain. But this is important. When we feel social pain, social exclusion particularly, social inclusions, okay, these areas are activated. So there is no difference for the brain when it comes to physical pain or exclusion. Okay, the pain areas will be activated. That's how, that's why it's so painful. Okay, when we feel a threat of social isolation, or when we are isolation is very, very painful for human beings, right? What's the worst thing that people can do to you? In a lot of societies, criminals and even political opponents are locked up in a small room with no human contact. Okay, it's worse than killing them because it's the most painful state you can throw them. And the harshest of the criminals, they don't want to be there, right? So in a lot of jails, the way they control behavior is that the threat of isolation, that you will be locked up in a room, no human contact, nothing but four walls, and you'll be just lying there for days and days and days. That's very, very painful. Isolation is not acceptable to the brain. And the same areas of the brain which are engaged in physical pain are engaged in when we are isolated or threatened to be isolated, right? So you can see that how powerful it is. Then there are the areas of the brain, particularly a posterior cingulate cortex. Okay, but this area is involved in sort of this area is involved in attaching emotions to autobiographical memories. Okay, the question that came just a minute ago. Okay, this is the area which is involved. So what happens is that in the past, if you were threatened to be, and I will talk about that as well. If you were threatened to be isolated, or you felt certain threats, you know, in your social life, then those memories are recorded. Okay, and they will kind of, you know, they will be in the background. The past memories will be in the background when you are dealing with social situations today. Okay, and this is because of the area posterior, PCC it is called, right? So this, I mean, obviously the brain is a very complicated thing, and there are many areas and many functions involved in a particular phenomenon. But I just wanted to emphasize, the idea is to let you know that there are areas in the brain which are involved in certain functions, and you need to know that, you need to understand that, so that you can control your behavior and your decision making. Okay, there are chemicals, neurotransmitters that are involved, particularly dopamine. Dopamine is involved when we are rewarded with something. It could be a positive experience or the expectation of something good, right? So when we are accepted by others, that is when dopamine is released. And when dopamine is released, that means we want this experience again and again and again. And on the other hand, when we are isolated, then stress hormones are released, which is cortisol, which actually depletes dopamine, and that's something the brain does not like. Okay, oxytocin is another hormone. Oxytocin is a hormone which is responsible for binding us to other people. Okay, and oxytocin is sort of engaged more when we are in a situation where we are surrounded by allies and loved ones. Okay, and oxytocin is something which we need more and more to sort of establish more bonding and establish more contact with other people. Right now, I want to go into the psychology side of thing, or the behavior side of thing, as to how you express, like what happens when you have fear of judgment. How do you express that fear of judgment behaviorally, so you know the symptoms, okay, some of the symptoms. And then I will go through some of the remedies or some of the suggestions. So if you're happy with the neuroscience side of things, please thumbs up. Okay, what happens is that there are certain behavior patterns, and I'm going to point out a few because of time limitations, but you can Google them and you can search them and see which symptoms you go through. Okay, and then you know what to do from there. Mind reading. Mind reading is something you will engage when you are going through this fear of judgment. Okay, I say hello. I said hello to that individual over there. Okay, they looked at me. They turned their head, and they didn't respond it back. Oh, so that means I've done something wrong. Oh my God, now this is going to happen. If that individual is a manager or a boss, oh my God, I must have messed up something. You see, you go through that mind reading. You don't know. That individual might be going through a bad day. That individual might be going through a fear of judgment of themselves. We don't know, right? It was just a one-off event. Normally that individual is nice and kind, but something might be bothering them. Right? So they looked at you, you said hello, they looked at you, and they just turned, and we're all lost in our own worlds. We don't know what's going on. But what we do is we engage in mind reading. Oh, no. I must have done something wrong. That's why this happened, right? So mind reading, and I told you that we have a component in the brain which is responsible for these functions. The component of the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, is constantly engaged in making sense of the world around us. But here, now it is overactive. because of the amygdala activation. Fear is activated. Oh, no, no, no. I must have done something wrong. Oh my God. Oh my God. Right? So you go through that loop. This is mind reading. Catastrophizing. Um, so you make a small mistake, and now you are jumping to conclusions that this is it. This is the end of the world, right? I made a spelling mistake in a report, and now my whole image is screwed. Okay, I won't get that promotion, or now my boss is going to talk to me. Okay, I'm the worst person on the planet. So I'm just giving an example from a professional context, but you can sort of imagine all the consequences that people can sort of go through this scenario when they are catastrophizing. Okay, they sort of kind of, what they go through is they will blow up the outcomes of a situation. Okay, that this is going to happen, and normally towards the negative. And again, this is that game of amygdala overpowering the medial prefrontal cortex. Okay. Then we have personalization. Okay, so you're working on a team, on a project, and somehow the project is not successful. So you think it was because of me. It was because of me. Everybody else is good. Me. I am the one who's responsible for that. Okay, so you go through this depressive mode of me, me, me. I am responsible for all the negatives on the planet, or whatever happens to me, it's because of my fault. The spotlight effect. So the spotlight effect uh, is basically, let's suppose you do something, you say something silly in a social context, and we all do from time to time. We all say things out of context, bad jokes, bad comments. Sometimes we might say something, we don't mean it, but they might be hurtful, and we've all done that, right? But here, what you do is you sort of multiply the impact of that. Okay, and you think that, well, because I've said something stupid over there, that means now I'm stupid for life. Now everyone is thinking of me. All eyes are on me. Hey, Mr. Stupid is walking. Hey, because he said that. Remember, he said that 10 years ago. So that individual is Mr. Stupid. That's how you think that people are. That's how you think that people are thinking. That the spotlight is on me, that the whole world is paying attention toward my problems. Unfortunately, that's not how it is. People don't have time. People only think about themselves. Okay, and when you are going through this exercise, just think about it. What are you doing? You are thinking about yourself, right? That I made that mistake. So now for the next 3 hours, you are thinking about them yourself. That's how other people are. They have their own business to worry about. They might laugh at your silly things, but 3 days from now, 4 days from now, a year from now, nobody cares. But people who are suffering from fear of judgment, they think that no, I am the center of attention, and I am the center of jokes in the office, or in the family, or in the social bubble, wherever they are. Okay. Then there is the black and white thinking. Okay, that I'm either good or bad, right? So if I don't receive an overwhelming positive response on my report from the boss, that means, oh man, I'm nothing. I'm zero. Okay, so it's either or thinking. Okay, that is a symptom of fear of judgment. Then there is overgeneralization. Because I acted stupid in that social situation, that means I'm going to act stupid in every social situation. Okay, that's how they think. That, well, this is me, this is my character now. Okay, because once I acted stupid with my friends, so that means here I'll be acting stupid. Hey, I'm going to be careful. Oh my God, don't say this. Don't, that's how you try to think twice before you say something in every context, in every situation. This is the symptom of fear of judgment. Okay, right. So, what are the causes of it? This is something we need to understand. Why some people are sort of, overtaken by their fear of judgment. Like I said, this fear is normal, fear is biological, but why me? Why? So why not someone else? Because I see someone else, they say something stupid and they just brush it off and don't think about it. But I am thinking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. So what's going on? Okay. They've got fear. I've got fear. What's going on? Why me? This is something we need to find out as to what could have caused this intensity of fear. Again, we're not talking about the presence of fear. We're talking about the intensity of fear. This is very, very important. So this is something I'm going to talk about now. If you are happy with the symptoms and the behavior side of things, thumbs up. If you have any question, please write it down, because when I finish my talk, we will be going through a half hour 40 session where you will have your questions answered. Okay. So there are certain influences which shapes our behavior. Okay. So what about Kamakshi Sharma? What about instant? Okay, we'll talk about it, Kamakshi. Your question, okay, I'll come back to this question. Okay. So now, excuse me, before I explain this bit, I want you to understand something. And I will be using an everyday example to emphasize something, okay? Imagine a computer which is manufactured in a factory, okay? When a computer is manufactured in a factory, all the components in that computer are capable of talking to each other, okay? Now, that computer is in a very raw state at that moment. So when you turn it on, you don't see anything. All you hear is some noise coming out from the box, and there's a blank screen. But something happened. You pushed a button, and the machinery inside that computer came alive. Okay. Now, what happens is that that computer is sent over to another department or another factory or another company. There, they will install an operating system on that computer. So imagine that computer, that box is sent over to Microsoft. Okay. So Microsoft will install Windows on it. Now, the underlying circuitry has an underlying software, the basic software. And that basic software has the capacity to talk to Windows or Macintosh or whatever operating system is layered on it. That operating system has the capacity or the capability to talk to the underlying software. And when they marry, we have behavior. We have a computer that comes out alive. We have now colors and text and images and videos and me talking to you on Google Meet. Now the computer is behaving. Similarly, when you are born with a very basic computer, a very basic brain. Okay. But that brain has the capacity to talk to software. Okay. So now you will go through life, and it will take about 18 to 20 or maybe 21 years before you have a fully developed brain. And this is a smart design. This is a smart design because the environment keep on changing. Okay. The environment keep on changing. So if you have a brain that is, not flexible, then the chances of survival are minimal. Okay. It needs to adapt to the changing environment. So what happens is that your experiences in life is the software, is the window that, or the Windows or the Macintosh that will be added to the underlying software. And now, the underlying software is talking to the experiences that you've gone through, and that is your behavior. Okay, this is how you will have an opinion of the world because of the past experiences. So we all are born with fear. Okay, but someone might have gone through some really, 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 bad situations in life, and or someone might have been very protected by mom or dad, or someone might have gone through the same bad experiences, but they have dealt with those experiences differently. Okay, so now their approach to fear situation is completely different. Okay, one who's been traumatized by fear, okay, will be afraid of things. Someone else who has been protected by mom or dad has no capacity, no skills to deal with difficult situations, so they're also afraid. But someone who's been there, done that, dealt with it, will be saying, bring him on, bring him on. Okay, that's the software that is talking to fear, underlying fear, that, hey, I've got nothing to worry about, bring him on, right? In the other instance, when somebody's traumatized, the overlaying Windows is talking to the underlying software. No, 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 no. Take it easy. No, don't go there. Don't go there. Right. So that's how behavior is shaped. And what are those circumstances? Some of the circumstances. I mean, it's a broad topic, but just to give you an example as to what could have caused the intensity of your fear of judgment. So, childhood condition is conditioning, sorry, it's very, very critical. Childhood conditioning is very, very critical. The impact of early environment, okay, was very influential on shaping your behavior. So one of the theories of behavior is attachment theory. Okay, so this is a situation where if someone is given attention, if someone is given love, if someone is given care, then they develop healthy attachment style or secure attachment style, right? Their perspective of the world is completely different. Okay? Their attitude and approach to social life is different. Okay, they approach it differently. They have more trust in people. Unfortunately, for some people who are not paid attention, who who are not cared for, they develop unhealthy attachment styles. Okay, so either they become avoidant, they avoid settling into relationships, so that they avoid, basically they don't trust people, or someone will become anxious in their attachment style. Okay, anxious means that they are afraid of losing someone because because both of them went through the pain of rejection in the past as children. And so, the avoidant has adopted this strategy of, what, if I don't settle in a relationship, that means there will be no pain. So that's how they avoid the pain. But this one, the anxious, is avoiding the pain through a different strategy. They're saying, well, listen, if I can hang on to relationships, if I can beg for relationships, if I can, have the little crumbs thrown at me and I say, yeah, thank you, that's enough for me, then I have the semblance of relationship, but I'm not going through the pain of rejection. So they are the ones who are most susceptible, according to attachment theory, to the fear of judgment. Oh no, please don't. Did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Did I do this? Oh, please. Oh, that's what they go through. This fear of judgment, according to this theory. But that's just one theory of explaining things. Okay. Um, there might have been, you might have been brought up in a very healthy environment. Parents or caregiver would have paid a lot of attention to you, but you might have gone through some adverse circumstances which have shaped your view of the world and your own view of the world, right? So to give you one example, It's very common in South Asian. So I don't want to talk about other cultures. So I'm going to stick to South Asian, so I can take the blame. In certain parts of South Asian cultures, right? Let's be more safe. Um, there is a lot of competition going on in sort of these social bubbles, and that social bubble is normally composed of a larger family or a larger tribe. Okay, but they are very competitive. Okay, they want to make sure, and that's very human, by the way. Okay, we all compete in a social bubble. We don't want to be sort of considered as not up to the par with the Joneses. Okay, we want to be considered as equal within a social bubble. But I'm just trying to give you an example as to what can go wrong. So sometimes that competition can take a negative dimension where people are more acting on their emotions, and they might put down my other children. Like, suppose one person might put down somebody else's child because of that competitive dynamics, right? That my child is better than yours. Look, my child's got A grades and you got look, it goes on in that part of the world. That can impact a child, self-confidence and their perception of themselves, and then they are the ones who's going to go through. Their parents have paid attention, but the world around them was not very nice to them. Okay, so that can impact their fear of judgment, and they can take that with them for a long, long time until they realize, oh my God, this was the competitive dynamics, and they were trying to put me down because they wanted to be one up. Then they change their behavior, but for a particular amount of time, they do go through fear of judgment. So I'm just trying to emphasize as to how, through multiple factors, people get influenced, not just because mommy was wrong or daddy was wrong. Okay. Then there are people who are just more prone to anxiety and fear. Okay, fear of abandonment and rejections. It's just their constitution. It's just their personality. Okay. Some people have this higher desire to avoid conflict. Okay, now understand, it might come harsh, but I will say whatever is the truth. Conflict is therapeutic. Okay, please note down my words. Conflict is therapeutic, particularly when you deal with a conflict. And I'm not talking about physical punching someone or kicking someone. Yes, there are situations where you should be protecting yourself if your, dignity and physical, your loved ones or you are being threatened physically. Then yes, go for it, and you will go for it. Then you don't need a philosopher to explain that to you. Your brain will automatically either run or attack. But in a normal social context, minus the physical aggressive side, if you avoid conflicts, you are not doing good to your brain. Your brain does not like that. Your brain is a warrior. Keep that in mind. Your brain is a warrior. It likes battle. Okay. So if someone says something, try to put you down, try to insult you, and so there are two ways about it. Either the advice is to you become the bigger person and walk away. Yeah, if you do it from strength, fine, right? If you are, someone who is a high achiever, or someone who is blessed with, a certain look or certain physical features, whatever it is, you have an edge, and someone who does not have that edge, and they are trying to put you down, then you can be a bigger person, because it doesn't make any difference. Other people will see that and like, what? There's no chance, right? Look at them and look at you. So they might as well, they'll probably laugh at the other individual. But unfortunately, there are situations where someone will try to put you down, to have to sort of to kind of win the battle of life, but walk over your dead body. If you trying to explain something here, right? So in an office environment, you are in a meeting, and someone who is, of equal standing, either you're going to be the next manager or they're going to be the next manager, and they want to bring you down. This is not the time to be the bigger person. Okay, this is not the time to be, because your image is at stake. Okay, if you, particularly if you are afraid, then you're not a bigger person, then you're a weak person. Okay, if you feel like you're not responding to that insult because, oh my god, this is going to happen, then you're not a bigger person. You can have a quote on the, a quotation on the wall with a huge frame, I am the bigger. Your brain is not stupid. Keep that in mind. It knows the context, right? uh, there you were successful and somebody was below you, doesn't matter. Here it matters, right? So knowing the difference is very, very important. And do not avoid, situations where assertiveness is required. Assertiveness is important. And make sure that you are not avoiding it because of the fear of conflict. Okay, so fear of conflict will engage your fear of judgment. Oh my god, if I say this, then this is going to happen. If I say this, then this is, oh my god, the whole world is going to think that I'm violent. The whole world is going to think that I'm mean. The whole world. That's the kind of thought patterns you engage in. You're not mean. It's the other person who is mean. And when you keep quiet, actually you're doing more bad to society, because that individual needs to be taught a lesson that don't cross boundaries. Okay, so if you teach that person boundaries, that person is not going to cross someone else's boundary who's weaker than you, and they will decimate somebody who's weaker than you once they kind of step over you, because now they are bolder. They think, oh my god, I can do that, right? I can cross this boundary. That means they will do more damage to somebody who's weaker than you. So basically you're trying to protect someone who's behind you. So you are a bigger person by confronting fear, not the bigger person by avoiding conflict, right? So this is important. This is something we need to understand. And these nuances are very, very important, but it depends on the social context. Low self-esteem is another cause of the fear of judgment. And that could be for a variety of reasons. That is a topic in itself, right? Like why people, we will talk about this, Hossam, so that why some people have low self-esteem and why some people have a healthier self-esteem. That in itself is a huge topic. Obviously, childhood experiences, your own experiences, you show your own sort of experiences in life. How much have you achieved in life? How much have you been successful in life? All those play a role in your self-esteem. People, at the end of the day, with a low self-esteem would have higher fear of judgment. Okay. Then there is the cultural and socialization factor, which play a huge role in fear of judgment. Okay. So there might be a culture which would overemphasize shame. Again, I'll give the example of South Asia, where everything is shameful. Okay, don't do this, don't do this, don't say this, don't dress like this. Oh my God, your hair should be this. Oh, you are a man, why you have long hair? Oh, you are a woman, why you have this? Blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on and on and on. So there, people will be more like walking on eggshells because of the fear of judgment, because of the cultural influences. Not that mommy was wrong or daddy was wrong or someone else did something to you. It's because of the environment that you are in. Okay, I'm not going to have that kind of hairstyle. I'm not going to say this. Oh, I'm a lady, I should not be wearing this. Or I'm a man, I should not be wearing this. Okay, so that's fear of judgment. I should not say this. Oh, this is an elder, I shouldn't say this. I should stay quiet in front of the elder, even if the elder is, saying things that are not appropriate or stupid, as a matter of fact, particularly in a professional environment, right? You might have better ideas, you might have more creative ideas, but the managers are elders, and you are in that context, in that social, South Asian context, they might be like, no, he's an elder, so they're right. Things like that. All I'm trying to do is emphasize is that cultural influences, culture around you will try to impact your behavior, and it might in certain cases, influence it negatively. Okay. And it will influence your fear of judgment in a larger social context. Okay. So now I want to give you the goodies, what to do about it. But before I do that, I just want to make sure that you are clear. Okay. So far, thumbs up if you're happy. If you have any question, write it down or you can ask it now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you talk about, I'm sorry to talk so much, but when you talk about cultural conditioning, how do you account for racism?
Um, okay, we'll talk about it. Okay, that's a very if yeah, it can impact your self judgment, right? If you are if you are in an environment where you feel like you are being signaled out because of your race. But it's a very complex topic. Okay, it's a very complex topic. But yes, it can influence your fear of judgment. Okay, but the depth of it we will talk about some other day because it requires a lot of again we need to come. I always talk about a perspective or a topic from multiple angles. I don't it's not good that you talk about something from just one angle, that this is this and this is like I don't want to. I don't operate in black and white. I operate in a more complex area where I try to explain something through science. Okay, so hopefully someday I will be talking about racism. But yes, it can influence your fear of judgment if you feel if that is your perception or you believe that you are being singled out because of your background. But again, no two people have the same experience, right? No two people of the same racial background will have the same experience. That's why there's complexity to it, right? So someone who is, one individual would say, I don't feel any racism. When you talk to someone else, they'll say, oh, no, there's a lot of racism, whatever society they operate in. So that's why I cannot have a straightforward opinion that, yes, this is it, because, somebody can prove it wrong. But people who have a perception or a belief, or they do literally see it, that other people are treating them differently because of their race, then their fear of judgment will be very high in that situation. They will be walking on eggshells. Yeah, definitely. Okay. And racism is, by the way, exists in all societies. Okay, keep this in mind. But in different, the names are different, the classification is different, but it exists in a lot of society. And the underlying mechanism of it is a hierarchy, okay, which is a very biological process, but the hierarchy gone wrong, not gone right. So hierarchy is, we have this desire, this instinctive desire to climb the social ladder up, right? So if you apply that to an individual, it becomes a positive force of achievement and new discoveries. Okay, because they want, you have to do something, you have to achieve something to be given that higher position. So that achievement could be either produce a product or a service for humanity. Then I'm going to give you that status. So then you're going to move up the hierarchy. So that's what we do all the time, right? That's what politicians do all the time. That's what sportsmen do all the time. That's what musicians do all the time. That's what film actors do all the time. That's what scientists do all the time. We are just engaged in, proving ourselves. Whether, yes, give me that status, I'm here. But negatively, it can be, sort of translated, or sorry, some people can sort of attach this process of I am better to because of this, and because of this. So now, in a way, it's a kind of shortcut. Okay, because I don't have to achieve anything anymore now. I can just say because and it exists in all societies, okay, and the parameters are different. So in certain societies, it could be, caste system, like in South Asia, okay, where they have a lot of caste systems, right? So one caste is superior to the other caste because you're born into it. So now, it's a shortcut for prestige, for status. So you can walk around and say, oh, right, I'm special now, right? And in certain societies, it could be color based. And in certain societies, it could be height based. In certain societies, in healthy societies, it's based on pure hierarchy. Okay, bring up, achieve something, show me something. Okay, you are a gold medalist. Now I'm going to give you status. I don't care if you're black or white. So that's the healthy dimension of that racism. I mean, that hierarchy. But racism tends to be the negative aspect of it. Right. So what we're going to do about it? How are we going to deal with the fear of judgment? Okay. Imagine our grandpa walking in savannah, and grandpa's eyes saw something, and it's a shadow. Fear, immediately. Information is sent from the eyes to the senses, to the middle, from the senses to the middle section of the brain, to the amygdala. Danger. So the amygdala send information downwards to the bottom section of the brain to engage rapid heartbeat, to increase blood pressure, to increase breathing rate, to tense up muscle. Now you have a fear response. Now you have a stress response. Okay, because there's a danger. But all these sources of information, your hearing and your sight and your sense of smell and your sense of touch and your sense of taste, they also send information to another region of the brain, your prefrontal cortex. So the way it is done is that information is sent through a short wire and through a long wire. So a short wire is sent immediately to amygdala. And this is a very efficient mechanism, because this method guaranteed our survival back then in savannah. Okay, because now immediately engage fear. That's why when you see documentaries, where you see those animals chasing other animals, you can see those quick reflexes. It's because of that short circuit. Immediate, boom, boom, there's a danger, run or attack. So it's a very efficient mechanism. However, certain situations require that more information should be added to decision making. Okay, so what happens is that now the same information is sent to the amygdala, to the prefrontal cortex through the long wire for assessment. So grandpa is frozen now because grandpa's the information sent through the short circuit has engaged fear. But now grandpa's brain is analyzing the whole scenario. It is looking at the thing, the shadow. It's got 4 legs. It's got a tail. But the shape of the mouth, in particular, the face, is different. It doesn't look like a cat. It looks like it may be an antelope. So that information is sent downwards to the amygdala, because the amygdala, remember, and the prefrontal cortex communicate to each other. So when that information is sent to the amygdala say, "Oh, okay, sorry, thank you. So it's not a lion. No, it's not. It's not some other cat. No, it's not a leopard. No, it's not a leopard. It looks like an antelope. Food. Oh, so now the information is sent downwards to the stress system. That chill out a bit. We are out of danger." So now grandpa is making better decisions. Okay, but he's making better decisions through a gift, and that gift is precious. That gift is called cognitive reappraisal. Okay, you give a different meaning to the same phenomenon, and your psychology and your biology changes. So the tense grandpa is relaxed now. The scared grandpa is chilled now because of one information. This is not a cat. This is an antelope. This is not a threat. This is an opportunity. The whole game changes. One thought. This is called cognitive reappraisal. This is a superpower. This is the superpower for which prefrontal cortex evolved. Okay. Now, this is where the prefrontal cortex takes over the amygdala. It overpowers the amygdala. It overpowers the fear center. And the fear center, gives in, oh, all right, that's fine, that's fine. It's not a threat. I'm fine, I'm fine. And this is your job. This is your job. Every time fear is engaged, you need to tell yourself that no, no, this is not what it is. No, 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 no. You give a different meaning to a situation, to the fear of judgment. Okay. And that meaning that you give is this: the most powerful function or psychological trick that you can engage is called nonchalance. So, nonchalance is, but it requires something very important. It requires your ability to be okay with the outcome. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But it's the superpower. Okay. You need to be okay with the outcome, whatever that outcome is, because you don't know future. You don't know what's going to happen. So you are engaging in this movie making where you think, oh no, I know that this is going to happen. And that's your decision making flaw. There is no human being on this planet which can predict the future as it is. It does not exist. If you are that human being, you are the next trillionaire. Trust me. If you can predict the future as it is, you are the next trillionaire, the most richest person on the earth. But chances are you are not. Okay? So what you need to engage is when you are in any social situation, you must engage nonchalance. I'm okay if this happens, the negative. Unless and until you are okay with the negative, you will have the fear response. Okay? Because that consequence that you have in your brain is keeping the fear engaged. We don't know what's going to happen, but the consequence, the brain still is worried about the consequences. So you need to eliminate the consequence. And what better way of eliminating carbon than say, okay, I'm okay with it. Let them laugh at me. Let them make fun of me. Let it happen. Right? When you were in a school or college or university, the worst humiliation in your life is your joke now, right? You laugh at it with others. But at that point, you were like, oh, the world is, oh my God, the world is, like I am the center of attention. But now when you think about it, you're like, oh, was that? That's how it is, right? So you need to be ready for any consequences. Now, this does not mean that you say stupid things or you do stupid things. This just means that you free up your brain. And remember, as long as your fear is engaged, your prefrontal cortex is not working. So it is either or. Okay, either your prefrontal cortex takes over or your amygdala takes over. So as long as you are afraid of the consequences, your amygdala is engaged. When your amygdala is engaged, you're not thinking rationally. Okay, so people who are good in social, just to give you one example, people who are good or more fluid in a social situation, they say the right things, they do the right things, they move the right way because they don't care. And this free up their prefrontal cortex and all the brain functions, and you see the naturalness in the way they do things. But on the other hand, you have someone who is like, excuse me, I don't mean to offend, but but I'm, no, there's a short circuit in the brain. That's fear of, that's fear in action. That's fear of judgment in action. So they tend to say the wrong things. They tend to convey the wrong message compared to people who are more fluid, who are more, they don't operate on fear. They have either the natural tendency, or through constant exposure, constant exposure, they have more control over their fear. And that's how fear, that's how you manage fear, is in, you expose yourself in baby steps. You expose yourself in baby steps, right? And that's how the brain is trained. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go to this, social situation today. It's a huge, big challenge, and I'm going to think positive, and I'm going to imagine this. No, you slowly and gradually, in baby steps, you know expose yourself to those situations, and your brain get trained to the point that it becomes an automatic behavior, just like driving. Okay. How many times have you, at least I've been talking to, family and friends, and boom, suddenly stopped my car. And it wasn't me who stopped the car, it was my brain. Immediately, boom. I remember on a motorway, I was driving, and I was in the middle lane, and the other individual was in the middle lane. And I was trying to overtake that individual, so I was a bit close. And I was talking to my friend, and suddenly the tire burst. Boof! The car in front of me, and it started to swivel. And I was constantly, I can still remember, I was chasing the movement of that car until that car went that way and I went that way. Split second, my brain did it. I'm not the one who did it. My brain did it because it was trained. It's automatic. Okay. The best performance in sports is done through automatic. Let it go. And although they practice, but the most important ingredient is pressure down, amygdala down. Because once the amygdala takes over, you're pretty much frozen. Okay. So this is something you need to engage. This is something you need to practice. This is something you need to practice in baby steps, pretty much every day, right? You go to a situation and you say, what, let the worst happen. I don't care. This is called a cognitive reappraisal. You give a different meaning to a situation, okay? And you repeating affirmations on a daily basis, okay? Particularly when self-doubt, hits you. It's like, what the way, so I'm going to simplify it, okay? That's not how exactly it is, but let's simplify things. So the way the brain works is that memories in the brain are for a purpose, okay? Because your brain is trying to protect you. So anything that happened in the past, particularly if it was seriously bad for survival and passing on the gene, the brain will record that information because it's trying to protect you, and it'll try to remind you of that negative situation. All the brain is trying to do is protect you, right? So out of nowhere, you'll be cooking breakfast and something from the past will boom come to the surface. Okay. Your self-doubts, stories from the past. Now, here is your opportunity to change things. This is where you engage with your brain in a dialogue that, okay, this happened. Yeah, it was very bad. Thank you very much for reminding me. This is what I do. Something from the past will and most of the time, the things from the past would haunt me where I was not assertive. Okay, so there was a situation, to give an example. It's a worse example, but we're all human beings, we have emotions. So I had a situation in a gym where I was just working out behind this guy, and this guy is massive, huge. And he turned around and he said, "Don't stand behind me." I said, "I'm not standing behind you. There's just at least 1.5 meters distance." He said, "But I don't like people standing behind me." I said, "Well, so have a gym for yourself." And then he turned around and was like, "What was that?" I said, "Well, why, Your Highness, build a gym for yourself. This is a public gym. I pay, you pay it. So this is my space. This is now." Things went a little bit south. Okay. And I can't, my emotions took over and I behaved the way I normally don't behave. Okay. Because I'm a trained martial artist, but I don't pick fights. But here, um, there was nothing but F this and F that and F this and I was ready for it. Right. So then the manager came over and the manager split, sort of kind of, we were almost at it. Well, the chances were that possibly I would have been beaten badly, but that's not how my brain was behaving. I was on it, right? I was just waiting for him to make a bad move and I was on it. But the manager came and, no, okay. And then other people told the manager that that guy, the other guy, was problematic because he had done the same thing with us. So they had to kick him out of the gym. But then I saw a lot of customers, okay, my clients in the gym. And I felt a little bit like I was a bit out of character. But that was it. I have no regrets of that situation, despite that event um, potentially damaging me in financially in my professional life. But I have no regrets, zero regrets. As a matter of fact, in a way, I have this perverted pride that I stood against someone who was literally, it's like me taking on a truck, right? There was no chance. There was no chance of me. But me standing up against that huge guy still give me that feeling of confidence. There were times in my life where I didn't stood up for myself, where I wasn't that assertive. They haunt me to this day. Okay, they come from nowhere. There'll be this guilt and regret, and I should have said this, and I should have done this. Now, this is where you engage this faculty of talking to your brain. Okay, you say, "Look, yes, that was a mistake," and you be honest. Don't try to BS your brain. Okay, yes, I was wrong. Okay, I should have, because your brain, your individual brain is responsible for this citadel. Okay, and when this citadel is invaded, it doesn't like it. Okay, so your self perception or your self-esteem is very, very important for the brain. So you say, so you engage with this dialogue with your brain. That, look, yes, that was a mistake. It was a weakness on my part. Okay, but that's not my character because I've done that in other situations. But I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid. But let me tell you one thing, and that's just something you talk to your brain. I will never, ever, ever do this again. Okay, so now you'll feel that the pressure, because you gave this reassurance to your brain that you will be a partner in survival. Okay, that the brain is saying, okay, thank you very much. Okay, but the brain is brain. It will remind you again, and it'll keep on reminding you, and you keep on telling your brain, I will not do that again. But you know what? Your brain is very smart. It wants practical proof. Okay, so the more assertive you are, okay, the more guilt is replaced by pride or this satisfaction or the self-esteem. Okay, so the more you go through these exposure of self-assertiveness in different situations, the less those memories haunt you. This is something I have experienced, right? So you need to engage in this practice of talking to your brain and assuring your brain through repeated affirmations that I am enough, I am capable, I made my mistakes, but I will learn, I would deploy the right methodologies to make sure that I'm not in that situation again. This is very, very important. Now, there is a method which was developed by a scientist. It's called CCC method. Okay, it's not mine. This is not my technique. This is developed by other scientists. It's called the CCC method, and CCC mean catch, check, change. So you negative, a negative thought takes over. Catch, catch. Okay, this is a stage where you just grab it. Oops. Okay, that's a fly in your hand now. Right. Check. Check means what's the proof? Right? You need to validate that thought. It's just a thought, right? You need to validate it. Okay. And this is the filtering stage. If it passed the reality check, the proof is very important, the proof stage. If it passes the proof stage, then obviously, you know, something is going on because now you have a proof. Okay. Now, then you need different strategies. But most of the time, it won't pass the proof stage. It'll be just a thought because of the different influences. Okay. And here you will say, no, I don't have a proof, so I don't believe you, and I'm not going to act like on it. Okay. So this is the change. So catch, check, change. This is the change now. Okay? Because now there is no proof, so you're not going to believe that thought or that impulse. This is one of the powerful, easy techniques. C, C, C. Okay. Every time there is a negative thought, grab it and analyze it. And where's the proof? No proof? Go away. Proof? Okay, let me do this. Let me do this. Whatever the situation is. Okay. Right. So these are some of the powerful. If I go on and on and on and on and on, then you won't remember anything. So we'll finish it here. I gave you very powerful techniques of controlling your fear, although fear is a very complicated topic and it requires more than just these three techniques. But for now, if you can remember these and if you can put them into practice, you're much, much better than you were before this talk. And hopefully most of you would see the results immediately. Okay. But the name of the game is deploying baby steps and not bullshitting don't bullshit your brain. Okay. Show him something on the ground. Okay. And you will see the change. Okay. Right. I'll turn on your microphones. I don't know if okay. All right. So now it's yours, your questions, your ideas, and most importantly, your knowledge. Inform us if you know something about this topic, particularly your own struggles. Okay, this is critical because storytelling and listening to somebody's story that, oh, I was going through this problem and then this is how I managed it. This is gold. So if you have that story, please come forward.